Hello, and welcome back to Yoga Foundations for Inflexible Active Adults over the age of 40. My name is Heather. Welcome to my channel. This is day 4 of a 5-part series that I've created for those of you who are interested in trying out yoga, adding it into your fitness or your wellness routine. Maybe you've gone to a yoga class at a yoga studio or at your gym. And maybe you're just like, I feel a little lost. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I don't know all these terms. I don't know all these words. What do these poses mean? Or maybe you haven't even tried yoga just yet, but you're curious about it. Is it something that you can bring into your own personal fitness wellness journey, whether it's for body transformation, losing weight, staying active as you get older? Maybe you're training for something and you want to add yoga in as part of your recovery, whatever it might be. This is for you if you are interested in learning just a little bit more about yoga and if it is for you. So today's day 4, we're talking about mobility and active recovery. And this is something that I think is certainly important for those of us who maintain an active lifestyle and want to just have something in our repertoire for some active recovery, for some stress management, but also just adding in a little bit of mobility work around strength in your joints, things like this. So we're talking here about yoga as a performance tool versus just stretching. Okay. So there's a lot more to yoga than just going to a yoga class and doing yoga poses. There's a lot more to it. It's essentially an entire system, a way of living. And we can use those components or those pillars of yoga as a performance tool. So we're really focusing here on some of the poses, the breath work, the mindset, things like that. But I want you to consider yoga as a way to sort of level up your performance, whether it's in athletic performance, whether it's in your career, in your relationships, and anything that you're trying to better about yourself. Maybe you're looking at a body transformation journey. You're looking into weight loss. I've always said that weight loss, yoga can 100% can contribute to weight loss. It was a catalyst for me in my own personal weight loss journey. I've made several videos about it. So you can watch those videos if you would like. But anyhow, let's get into it. So I do have a handout. If you don't have it, you can go to inflexible.yogabyheather.com and you can grab this handout, Yoga Foundations for Inflexible Active Adults, 40 plus. Each day, each day, we have a couple different concepts and skills that we go over, and then some poses that we cover. So in session 5, all of these things will come together. And in session 5, we'll go through a 30-minute slow flow yoga class together. All right. So we're going over a couple different poses in each session. Today, we're going to cover a few more. But first, what I wanted to do is talk about some topics around mobility and active recovery. And the first one is active versus passive flexibility. All right. So oftentimes when I'm talking to people that maybe you're like 45, 50 years old, 55 years old, and like you run marathons or you do high rocks or CrossFit or you work out every single day. But you're like, I don't do yoga because I'm inflexible. To which I say, well, that's why we do yoga. We do yoga to become more flexible in both body and mind. And so what I wanted to talk about is how do we use yoga to improve both active and passive flexibility? So passive flexibility is going to be things like sitting in a stretch and maybe using your hands for some guidance or even using gravity. So it's more passive. You're not actively controlling it. So a passive stretch might be that you reach for your toes and then you pull your toes. You're pulling your toes here to work on your ankle mobility or your ankle flexibility. Okay. So, or you're in a forward fold and you reach and you're holding onto something to come into that sort of that passive stretch. Another thing might be using gravity. That becomes a passive stretch as well. So one of the more popular poses that you'll see sometimes in a yoga class is something called butterfly pose or bound angle pose. And this is where you bring the bottoms of your feet together and then you just allow your knees to drop open. So you're using gravity here to do a little bit of the work here, not actively pushing my knees down towards the ground. It's just gravity's kind of doing its thing. Okay. So when we talk about passive passive flexibility, that's that flexibility that you have that it really needs some sort of support to come into that level of flexibility, okay? And then you've got active flexibility, which is going to be the range of motion using your strength and control that your joints have, okay? So this is going to be something like, lifting your leg. So if you're sitting on the ground and you're lifting your leg, this is going to be some of that active or more mobility type of work. Another one that I always like to do in some of my yoga classes is, I know many of you, if you lift weights, sometimes you'll do it's called a yogi squat or malasana, but you come into a squat in between your sets. I like to do this when I'm at the gym, and I don't do this with a block, but I do it with my gym shoes on. And you come into a yogi squat, so my heels are in, toes are pointed out, and that just starts to work on some of your ankle flexibility, your knees, your hips, create some compression there. So there is some passive flexibility here, but also some active because you're holding into some of these poses or positions. So one thing that I like to do around active flexibility here is this internal rotation on your hips. So just allowing, and you're guiding it in. You're using your muscles to control it. Okay, it's not just like letting gravity to, allowing gravity just to let your knees, drop in. Coming into some of the other yoga poses that you might do as well, paying attention to your toes. Okay, so we've talked about a couple of different poses, balancing poses, where it's not just, you don't just have your toes they're not just dangling and your ankles just drop open. There is a time for that in yoga where we just kind of let everything go, allowing your feet to just drop off to the sides. But when you're coming into some of these more active poses, what you'll do is you'll point your toes up towards the sky. That keeps your muscles in your legs active, or you might even point your toes. You see this a lot in Pilates too, but you might point your toes or flex them to keep those muscles active. So there is a difference between that active and passive flexibility. And it's important when you're practicing yoga to understand, is this pose, is this position that you're in an active pose or a passive pose? And understanding the purpose for that pose. And that's where taking a class with a yoga instructor, they're going to help guide you into that. They're going to help with some cueing, telling you what to do with your toes, telling you what to do with your knees, your movements, that kind of thing, and guiding you through that active versus passive flexibility. Okay. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is hips, hamstrings, and shoulders. So these are I call it the big three. These are the three things that I see frequently, just by nature of our lifestyles. So many of us sit almost all day. We either sit at a desk, we sit on the couch, we sit in the driver's seat of a car, we're sitting in an airplane, we're sitting in a semi-truck, we're sitting in a bus. There's a lot of sitting that happens. And so as a result, what happens is that it tightens up your hip flexors and your hamstrings behind your leg. So when you're sitting like this, it's really shortening up the muscles on the front side of your hips and the back side of your legs. So everything gets really, really, really tight. And so when I'm talking to people and they're like, I want to do yoga, but look at me, I can't touch my toes. And they get right here and they can't touch the toes. Like, well, I mean, the point of yoga is not to touch your toes. I mean, it's something to certainly work towards, but it's not the end all be all, right? So when you're doing some of these poses, it's going to help to lengthen the back side of your legs so that you can come down to your toes, okay? And then we'll also do some poses that will open up the front side of your hips, okay? Your hip flexors here get really tight just in that sitting. Everything gets kind of cinched up here. So your hips, hamstrings, and then your shoulders. So when you're sitting, many times you're sitting at a desk, hunched over a keyboard. If you watch some of my other videos, this is what I do. You're sitting, you're hunched over a keyboard, you're hunched over a desk, typing. So look at what's going on with my shoulders. Okay, they're hunched over, they're rolled over. Okay, so paying attention to your posture. And as you start doing more yoga, you'll start paying attention to your posture outside of a yoga class off your mat, okay? So you'll start paying attention to, are your shoulders up and rolled back? Things like this. We all sit on our phones and our iPads, okay? How do you do that? You're sitting like this, doing it like this. You're probably not sitting like this, okay? So when we do some of these yoga poses, oftentimes we're working to counterbalance the shortness in your hamstrings, in your hips, and then even opening up your shoulders. So you'll do things like back bends that helps to open up the front side of your body. Okay, you might come into cactus arms, opening up the front side of your body. So you're opening up your shoulders, you're opening up your heart, you're opening up your hip flexors, the front side of your legs. All of this just sometimes needs to open up, right? Right, and that's just by nature of our lifestyle today, okay? So let's talk about how recovery days should look. There's a lot of people that if you're already in this like mindset of like, I work out, I go big, I go home, I'm doing it. And sometimes, especially when people are first getting started on maybe like a body transformation journey, you're just getting started at the gym, you're feeling good, you're feeling strong, and you want to just like go hard 7 days a week. I think I don't want to say it's normal, but I see it a lot with people that are just getting started. Like you get in this really good, like your mindset's good. You're like, I'm on it. I'm on the program. I'm doing it. And you forget to take the off days, thinking that you're going to lose your gains, that you're going to lose your momentum, that you're going to lose everything that you've worked hard for. But if your goal is to build muscle, to transform your body, to have a personal wellness routine that can last well into your 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond, you need to have active recovery days. All right. So, an off day, some people might call it an off day. I call it an active recovery day. These are not days that you sit on the couch and watch Netflix all day. That being said, there is some value to just shutting off for an hour or two. But when we're talking about active recovery here, it's not just sitting around doing nothing. It's gentle movement for your body. This can help to improve your circulation. This can help to improve soreness that you might have. This is really what's going to help you to keep going for the long haul. If you go hard every single day of the week, like your body eventually is just going to force you to take some downtime, either by getting sick or getting injured. And you're just going to be like, okay, now I'm out for 3 weeks or 6 weeks or 2 months or whatever it ends up being. So if you are somebody who is looking for something to do for an active recovery day, yoga is a great option for active recovery. That said, there are different types of yoga out there, okay? There's some yoga that's like power yoga. There's yoga sculpt, or yoga conditioning, which is using yoga with weights. I wouldn't necessarily call those types of yoga active recovery, but what we're doing here in this series is learning about something called a slow flow or a vinyasa flow, which is where it's gentle, guided breath to movement. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's gentle on your body, low impact. Okay, some of the poses can be challenging to come into, both mentally and physically, but that's where the growth comes from. All right, so your recovery days should be something that maybe is different from what you normally do. If you're training for a marathon, you're not going to go out and run on your active recovery day, right? If you're training for a bodybuilding competition, you're not going to go out and lift weights on your active recovery. I think you guys probably know that. But if you are somebody that's like, you're just getting into this, you're like, I'm exploring this, I'm just learning about living a fit life, active recovery is very important. Yoga can certainly contribute to your active recovery. Swimming is a great active recovery day. I like to go in the pool. I wear a belt. And I go in the deep end and I do some water walking. Like stuff like that is really good for your body to just move, get the blood flowing, get things circulating, all your lymphatic fluid moving around, all that good stuff. Okay, it really does help with the soreness. And then a little bit about the nervous system and the yoga connection. So your nervous system, there's people out there, a lot of people out there right now talking about nervous system health and nervous system reset and all of this kind of stuff. So I talk about something that I call the boring basics, and other people call them the boring basics too, but these are just like the boring things that you need to do every single day in order to live a healthy, active lifestyle. Okay. And what I've done is I've created something that I call the balance framework. And it's just an easy way to help people remember when I'm talking about the boring basics, these are the 7 things that I'm talking about. And one of those things, the L in balance, stands for lower your stress levels. Okay. Notice I didn't say it's get rid of all your stress altogether, because you're not going to. I think you're an adult. You understand that stress is just a normal part of life. It's just how do you respond to it versus react to it. Okay. And yoga can help contribute to that sort of downshifting of your nervous system so that when you're in a work meeting and something happens, you don't have this like instant reaction, or even overreaction, right? And this is where I think many people see yoga is actually impacting their life when they encounter some sort of situation at work, at school, I'm going to say out in the real world, off your yoga mat. They encounter this situation where it was like, oh my God, 6 months ago, I would have reacted very differently. I think this yoga thing might be working. I've had so many conversations about that. And I'm like, yes, you're taking yoga off the mat. You're taking it into your life and out into the world. And so, when we talk about nervous system, we've got this fight or flight state, and then we've got this rest and digest state. And there's totally normal, systems to go into fight or flight. It's to protect you. If your body is sensing danger, it's totally normal to go into into this, sort of this fight or flight mode. The problem is that I think in today's day and age, our body is sensing the things that's putting us into fight or flight. Like we're not running for our lives, trying to not get chewed up by a predator, we're getting into this fight or flight mode because we're just constantly overstimulated, constantly on our phones, constantly on social media. We're overstimulated at work. We're, those of us that work from home, we're sitting and we're staring at a screen all freaking day. It just overstimulates your body. Okay. And so as a result, you're just kind of walking around in this like wired feeling, like you're just like, and everything, there's just a reaction to everything. You're driving down the road and somebody pisses you off and you're laying on the horn, you're flipping your finger, and versus just being like, yeah, you know what, that person just did that. And I hope that they just cut me off. I hope it's, that they've got something important to go to. Just it's a very different sort of response to some of the things that would normally trigger you. Okay. So yoga can certainly help you come into this rest and digest mode through the movement, through the breath work, through the focus, the mindset, the mindfulness. Just kind of helps you to just chill the F out. Okay. I actually have a YouTube video. It's a 10-minute yoga video to help you chill the F out. Okay. So I think that when I'm working with people on their transformation, body transformation, training, whatever it is that they're training for, if they're working towards something, one component that I do preach is, what are you doing to actively lower your stress levels? Okay. It doesn't have to be yoga. I'm certainly going to tell you, I think yoga is a great option. I'm a yoga teacher. But if you've got some other thing that you're doing to help lower stress levels, that's great. But pay attention to that. Are you in this just like constant, just wired, overreacting, overstimulated mode all the time? Or are you just kind of like, yeah, you know what? That thing just happened and we're going to work through it and that's totally fine. Right? Okay. So those are the concepts and skills that I wanted to go over today. The poses that I want to go over. So again, day 4, day 5, we're going to put all this together into a yoga flow. All right. When I say yoga flow, I mean, if you go look at your local yoga studio's schedule or look up your gym, they'll have many gyms have yoga classes. You'll see things on there like a flow class, power flow, slow flow, vinyasa flow, something like that. What that is, it's a flow class where we do one breath to one movement. So we're breathe in, move, breathe out, move, breathe in, move, breathe out, move. And you'll hold some of the poses too, but we're just dynamically flowing between poses. And it's a very popular form of yoga here in the West, here in the US. That's why we're going over here today. It's oftentimes what people are looking for. All right. So let's talk about a couple different poses. So the first one that we'll go over is low lunge and then high crescent lunge, or sometimes called high lunge. Okay. So a low lunge is exactly what you think it might be. It is a low lunge. Okay. But I always, as I'm teaching yoga, I like to provide different options for you. I always say, like, I'm your guide. I'm here to help you out. I'm here to give you some suggestions, provide some different options for you. But you know your body. You know what you need. You know what you don't need. And part of yoga is learning how to honor where your body is right now. Not where it was 10 minutes ago. Not where it was last year. Not where it was yesterday. It's where is your body right now? What do you need right now? So these poses that we go over, there's so many different options. But when we're in class, I'll give you a couple different options too. And then if you're like, Heather, none of these options that you've given me work for me, that's fine. You find your own option or you just don't do it. It's just yoga. Okay. It's just yoga. All right. So let's go into low lunge. So low lunge, oftentimes we'll start. I'm going to take my watch off only because when I accidentally press this button with my hands like this, it calls 911. So we don't want to do that. All right. So oftentimes with low lunge, we'll start from either downward facing dog or maybe standing into tabletop position. So we've talked about downward facing dog. This is oftentimes a movement that you'll do early on in your yoga class. And we'll say something like, inhale, raise your right leg high. My block is back behind me. I wouldn't normally have it there. Inhale, raise your right leg high. Exhale, step your right foot forward between the palms of your hands. Come up onto your fingertips here into low lunge. Okay. So this is the low lunge. Notice my toes. Both toes are pointed towards the top side of my mat. I don't have my back foot spun down to the side. Both toes are pointing forward. My knee is stacked over my ankle, my back leg, nice and strong. You also have the option here to lower down onto your knee. Okay, so that's going to give you just a little bit more support, some more balance. Also just a little bit of a different sensation, because sometimes when you come into a low lunge, you might press your hips forward. That's going to help open up your back leg, the front side of your back leg. You might do some twisting. So the options, you might come into the low lunge with your back leg lifted, press forward, just a little bit of a different sensation than down here and pressing forward. Okay. So that's low lunge. We got low lunge and low lunge. Both are totally acceptable options. Okay. And then oftentimes from low lunge, the way I like to cue it is to come up onto your fingertips. So you just tent your fingertips like this. It's just an easy way to help people come up into high lunge and reach your fingertips up nice and high. Okay, so let's just say I'm here in low lunge, tent my fingertips, inhale, reach your palms, reach your fingertips up into high lunge. Okay, so notice this here. This is high crescent lunge. Now, look at my toes. Both toes are pointing forward. Okay, I don't have this back foot spun down at an angle. That's a different pose. Okay, different pose. That's warrior one. High lunge, both toes point forward, reach your palms up towards the sky. So palms, this is where if you have tight shoulders, you might have tight chest, your palms might be like right here. Okay, so what we work towards is bringing your biceps up towards your ears. Now notice what this does to my back. Okay, reach your palms up, biceps come up to your ears. It gives me a little bit of a slight back bend in my upper back. Okay, so now I'm opening up the front side of my body. Remember what we talked about earlier, opening up the front side of your body. Okay, so high lunge. What I'm not doing here is watch here. Reaching my palms up. Palms are reaching up, 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 up. But you bring your shoulders down and away from your ears. Okay, so you're not lifting up out of your shoulder sockets. you might reach up, but then bring your shoulders back down. All right. Front knee, stacked over the front ankle. That's high crescent lunge. Okay. Pigeon pose. This one, I like to give several options for it because pigeon pose can get very intense if you've got tight hips. Okay. So, pigeon pose, how you would generally come into it in a yoga class is like so. The way I will cue it when we do it in class is we'll come from downward facing dogs. Inhale, raise your right toes high. Exhale, bring your right knee to your right wrist. Lower your shin down onto your mat. Extend your left leg long behind you. Untuck your toes. Okay, so now notice here, my front shin, so you can see, my front shin is down onto my mat. There are some people that say your shin needs to be perpendicular to the top side of your mat. I've been practicing yoga 16 years. That's not happening for me. Probably isn't going to happen for you either, okay? So we work with what we have, all right? So right leg comes high, right knee to right wrist, lower your right shin, extend your left leg long behind you. Now, couple of options here. You can hold this right here. You also have the option to place a block underneath your front hip. Okay, so in this case, my right hip. The reason for this is because if your hips are tight, sometimes you have this sort of tendency to like roll over like this. All right, and you're not really getting the benefit of the pose by doing that. So by rolling over here, you can place a block underneath your hip, and that allows you just to kind of let it go. Just let those muscles go. Okay. Some other options here are to plant your palms here or even onto your front knee or front thigh. You can stay lifted. This gives you a little bit of a back bend here. More of an active pose. You're using your core muscles to hold your body upright. You also have the option to take it as a more restorative pose. So you'll bring your palms down to your mat, and you can place your block underneath your forehead. So you can bring your forehead down to your block or even all the way down to your mat and just let it go. Let gravity do its thing. The longer you're in this pose, the more you might find that you're extending your left leg or your back leg longer behind you because your hips are starting to open up. So generally you'll hold this about 5 breaths. Some other classes, you might even hold it just a little bit longer. And if you wanted to get a quad stretch in that back leg, you can kick your heel in and reach your palm back behind you to get a little bit of that quad stretch there. This is where a strap can come in handy as well. If you can't quite reach that, you can do that as well. So now you're like, Heather, I just tried pigeon pose. That's way too much for me. I'm going to give you a couple options. Okay. I have 2 knees that have issues. So I feel like I have figured out most of these poses. If you've got knee issues, I think I have figured out most of these poses. So if there's something I haven't covered, let me know in the comments and I will, I'll help you out here. So couple options. You can do what is called a supine figure 4. So you come down onto your back and bend your knees, bring your heels in towards your glutes. You raise your right leg up and then bring your right ankle over your left thigh. So you're opening up your legs into a figure 4. All right. So I'm like this, opening up your legs into a figure 4. You're getting the same benefit of the pose. It's just a little less intense on the knees. And even on the hips as well. So you can always, press your knee open. And if you want more intensity, you can lift your back leg, your bottom leg, wrap your arms around your hamstring, or even reach back all the way through and wrap around your shin for a little bit more intensity. So you have that option here too, to do a supine figure 4. Another option that I really like is like a seated half pigeon. And so what this is you got your bottom leg on the ground, bend here. Then you bring your top ankle and your knee over your ankle. So you line everything up Notice I've got some space here, okay? If it gets too intense on the hip and the knee, you can place a block right there for a little bit of support, okay? This is one that I really like as an alternative to the Pigeon, the original Pigeon that I showed you with the leg extended behind. For me, this position, it works for my body, okay? So that's a couple options there for Pigeon pose. Then we've got seated forward fold. So we've talked about forward fold from a standing position. Seated forward fold is just that. So you come to a seated position on your mat. In this case, my feet are hips width distance apart. Toes point up towards the sky. This is an active pose. So we're not just letting the legs dangle here. The ankles aren't just falling open, okay? Active, keeping the muscles in your legs active. Toes are pointing up towards the sky. Inhale, reach your palms up high to the sky. That helps to create some space in the backside of your body. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, hinge forward at your hips, reaching forward till you might just feel this little spot in the back of your hamstrings, your low back. You might even bend your knees here just a little bit, help you come a little bit deeper into that pose. A little bit of a different sensation by bending those knees, okay? You could even place a block, roll up a blanket or a towel for a little bit of support underneath your knees. You can do that as well. You'll reach for your knees, your shins, your ankles, your feet. If you've got a lot of flexibility, you might even place a block on the backside of your toes and then reach for that block. You can do that as well. I'm not there. So that's that. So seated forward fold, supine twist. So supine, you got supine and prone. Supine's on your back, prone's on your belly. Okay. So for a supine twist, you bring your knees, bend your knees, bring your heels in towards your glutes. I don't have a lot of room here because I have the wall right here, but what you can do is you can extend your arms open to a T or even a cactus arms, your palms face up. That gives you a little bit more of that shoulder opening that we've talked about, just helping to open up your shoulders. And there's a couple different ways that you can do this. You can draw your knees. This is the way I like to do it, is to draw your knees into your chest and then slowly lower both knees down to one side. Now, what you can't see is, and I'll do it to this direction so that you can see, what you notice here is that I do the twist, but I'm not allowing the shoulder to pop up off of the ground, okay? So the shoulder stays planted down onto the ground. So if I come into the twist and my shoulder starts popping up, that means I've just gone a little bit too deep in the twist, all right? So what you can do then is take your block and place it underneath your leg, underneath your knee to help support you. You want to keep that shoulder down on to the ground. That's what's going to give you the twist into your spine, okay? Then your palms can come open, or you can bring them to cactus arms. And then if you want even more depth into your twist, your gaze will come to the opposite direction of your legs. So gaze will come over to the right. I've twisted over to the left here. And if I were twisting this direction, my gaze would come over this direction, okay? You could also extend the top leg long. That just gives you a little bit more depth into the twist. You could do that as well, okay? So that is the supine twist. And then we've got thread the needle, all right? This is one I love. I love doing shoulder stuff. I love doing hip stuff. I love doing all the stuff, really. But thread the needle. A couple different ways you can do it. You can do stuff with your legs. You can do stuff in just some different starting positions. But we'll start this one from a tabletop position. And so thread the needle is you take your palm and you thread it underneath your opposite armpit, essentially your opposite shoulder. All right. So if I'm going to take a thread the needle this direction, what I'll do is I'm going to press down. I'm in my tabletop position, press down into the right palm. Inhale, reach your left palm. I'll reach it up towards the sky here. And then exhale, slide your palm underneath your right shoulder, reaching towards whatever is over there. So for me, it's the camera, not high. So reaching towards whatever's over there. So you might take this movement dynamically a couple of times. And this is where an instructor, or if you take my class, I will cue you. And then lower your palm down onto your mat, lower your cheek down onto your space, and reach to whatever's over on the right side of your space. This palm right here, you can keep it right where it is for a little bit of balance and support stability here. Okay, you can play around with where you want to place that. If you want to open up your shoulders just a little bit more, you can take your palm and place it on your low back. Palm faces up, and then you can open up your shoulders just a little bit more, adding into the twist. All right, then plant your palm back down on your mat, press it up, and come here, do some shoulder circles, some wrist circles. I'm just kind of limited here with this wall. And then come back into tabletop, and then you do it on the other side. All right, so that's some great opening for your shoulders. So those are the poses that I wanted to go over today. You've got a link here to the yoga pose library. I've got a growing list of yoga poses on my website. I've also got yoga pose tutorials here on YouTube. You can watch the playlist here. I think it's going to be over here. You can watch the playlist. I've got all sorts of different yoga pose tutorials. I'm releasing one a week for right now. If there's a specific yoga pose that you're like, I need a tutorial, put it up on YouTube for me, please just let me know in the comments. And I will get that to you. Also, go to inflexible.yogabyheather.com. You'll get all of these videos sent to you. You'll get this handout sent to you that you can write notes on. And then you can also just reply to any one of those emails that I send out. I do read them. I do respond to them. So you'll get all of them sent right directly to you in your email. So that is day 4. Day 5, we're going to put this all together into a 30-minute slow flow yoga class. We'll just do sort of a review of some of the basic poses. And I'll answer any questions that have come in since I've recorded days 1 through 4 here. And we're going to go over Shavasana too. I think that Shavasana is a very important part of yoga. Something I hear frequently, I can't do Shavasana. I can't do Shavasana. I can't sit still for 5 minutes. Well, the people that can't sit still for 5 minutes are the people that need to sit still for 5 minutes. So Shavasana is an important part of your yoga practice, and we're going to talk about that in day 5. We're going to put this all together, 30-minute class. Come join me. Subscribe to my channel. Go to inflexible.yogabyheather.com. Talk to you soon.